Yeah.
There I go.
Okay. 4 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call. Trustee Grundon,
Here.
trustee Caleb
Here.
McGuire, sorry.
Yeah.
Diane's here, myself, Chief Drew. Approve the agenda and approve previous committee minutes from October 5th, 2023. Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Grundon,
And I'll second that.
second by McGregor. Any discussion? I guess the only discussion I would like to make is that, Diana had pointed out that we are over. For October, that we're actually a little bit over. I think you had seen that email. That we're about $2,000, wasn't it about $2,000?
Yeah. Negative.
In the negative, so, just so everybody's aware. With that, any other discussion? As for all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? None saying, we'll pass that. Public comments on the agenda. Any public comments? None, seeing nobody online. Chairman comments, I have none at this time. Diane, do you have anything?
No.
Motion to approve the monthly bills, journal entries from previous month and financial report. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second by Grundon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing no opposed, that motion passes. Discussion and possible motion on trustees in additional stipend for taking minutes of the meetings. You can see here Diana has put together, trustee Zerflu had asked and requested I put this on the agenda. Wood County does that. There's a couple things in here that should be noted is, one, if we do that, we have to have just one person that would take the notes for every meeting. It'd have to be one person that would be designated for that, one committee member. Like, Diane is probably taking the minutes here today for this meeting. It would have to be one person that would be always doing that, and also it includes that they have to type up the minutes from the meeting for the board meeting. The county does have this in place.
Wait, say that again?
Well, they have to do, so if you're taking the minutes.
We'll
like-
designate you for the whole year to take notes. for
Right,
this.
and then you'd get $10 for doing that, but then you'd also have to type up the minutes and have them prepared for the board meeting. So like if I'm taking notes here for the agenda here, I would, for all these motions that we just did, then afterwards it would have to be typed up, then sent to Kim.
So not going to Kim?
It would go to Kim, but Kim wouldn't type them up. We'd have to type, that
Yeah.
person would have to type them up.
I think kill it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the county's policy. And they said no one has asked for the $10 in years. They don't even remember because, as long as Trent Miner was there and Cindy Seabrooks, and that's been a long time, no one has gotten it. So they do have that in place, but they don't.
I agree with you, Tira, as to kill it. I mean, I did the minutes on the last one and, you know, it takes a few minutes and Kim has been really great. Diane's been really great on doing this. Unless you foresee one of the trustees doing it, I say that we just, dismiss the motion.
I've been doing mine for Pitt just because I just want to make sure they're done and I don't want to have my neck on the line. But Kim like makes it so easy. I literally just go call to order and I put number 1 in time. And, you know, in a very
I
draft
agree 100%.
format, and she completely does all this.
I was hesitating with it too, because I usually can take enough notes during the, a meeting that I usually send them out right afterwards, so it doesn't seem like extra work if I was to do it,
Mhm.
because I type very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, then you're a lot better than me. 'Cause I'm-
Yeah.
But I'd rather just say, I mean, it's $10, we have a tight budget as it is, but I mean, if we did that, we'd have to add about $600. I mean, $600 isn't a lot, but it's a lot compared for this budget. I just say we kill it.
I'm down for that.
That's, yeah.
Okay, discussion and no motion taken. Number 9 is actually, it's just, unfortunately, it got back on there. We already, talked about this and made a motion at the last board meeting. And it's the increase in garbage and it will be back on the tax roll. So this was just, in
I don't-
error,
I don't-
typo.
Understand.
Well, it was if you see it, number 9 is accept a proposed garbage collection.
We already
fee.
did that.
Yeah.
So that was just happened to be on the agenda. It was an error.
So it didn't come out,
It is done. We already voted on it at our
It was
last
a
board meeting.
grammatical.
It was on the last, on the October agenda, and then it just didn't get taken off of this one.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
so that's, we don't need,
Yeah,
so we're done here.
Well, we're gonna. Well, Tiara, now, wait a second.
What are you gonna
You
do
sure
for
wanna-
55 minutes?
No, number 10 is a discussion on the 2024 operating.
Oh, that,
budget. Oh, that.
There goes our 55.
here, have some candy.
You know, we talked about this at the committee of the whole. And I know we have another meeting coming up on November 6th. It's a tight budget and, you know, if we can make it work, I mean, there's a lot of wants and needs and it's, I mean, I'll repeat myself. I would love to give the fire department a new rescue vehicle. I'd love to have more money for the police and the streets. There's no doubt about it. I'm pro everything here in the village, but with no growth in the village, it's gonna be a tight budget. And if you guys can make it work on the committee of the whole, just right now, the way that Diane has set up the budget and working with Chief Drew, Chief Warden, and Mr. Martinson, it balances. And to add extra things, it's gonna be tough. I'll just be honest, it's gonna be tough. And we might have to, if we decide that we want extra things, like the rescue vehicle or the 4th officer, or we might have to go to a referendum and ask the people of the village, what do you want? And if the people want the increase and bring up the levy on the budget, then that would be up to the people of the community of the village of Port Edwards, which I'm not opposed to. I think that all of the operating, I mean, I will tell you right now, all our departments and all our department heads have worked under really a tight budget for the last few years, you know, coming onto the village board. I noticed in the accounts, the 400 accounts have been sucked dry. You know, they've been, meaning, again, we were supposed to replace a pickup truck 2 years ago. That was in the 400 account, but no money was put in there. It was taken, it was kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. And these 400 accounts are there, so when the equipment comes due, then we have the money set aside for it. And now, those 400 accounts just don't have any money in it because we've been using that money to operate. And like I said, it's a very tight budget. Definitely, if we can find money, great. A referendum would probably be our one of our other options. Just plain and simple. And there's a lot of unknowns. You know, we had our assessment, should bring down our tax levy, but still houses were assessed higher, so how that plays, I'm not,
We just don't know yet.
we just don't know. And so that's an unknown.
Can I just say it? It
Yeah.
will bring the tax rate down, not the
Right.
levy, but the rate.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, the way the budget is figured here, last year, our local rate was 14.92. And this year it's coming to 9.53, so it brings it down by $5 and some cents per thousand. But we don't have the county and school numbers yet, so, but just our local rate.
But even though that rate brings down, to 953, our assessed value may be more, so that,
It is, that's
Right,
why it
so-
came down.
right, so then it kind of equals out
Pushes
on
it
most
down.
people.
Right.
And that's hopefully
Well,
what we'd
some
like to see.
people, it might go up some and some down some.
Yeah,
That part we won't know till when.
till they get their tax bill. Cause I mean,
Are you
depending
taking
how their
vacation that week?
assessment changed. But I mean, just cause people's assessment doubled, doesn't mean their taxes are gonna double.
Right.
The tax rate should come down, so.
But just plain and simple, there's a lot of unknowns. And I wish I had better answers. But that's the way it looks right now, is the budget. Diane, do you have, I mean, Diane knows the budget inside and out, because she's done it for years and years, and it's kind of complicated the way it is set up. I understand a little bit about it, probably just the tip of the iceberg, but Diane,
It is
it
complicated.
is complicated,
And I appreciate you, Diane, because it's mind boggling.
right? Because this
Complicated.
number goes here, this
Mhm.
number moves up, that number moves there. You can only go a certain part on what you're allowed.
Well, and then on that summary, you can see I highlighted that. I mean, according to our policy, we're supposed to have like $400,000 cash that's unassigned. Well, that would be impossible right now. It would be nice if we at least had 200 in there, but to make it work, we had to bring it down to 100, and that is kind of scary, because that's like for emergency purchases, or, I mean, a budget isn't exact, so if things aren't figured.
So if we got completely pinched, though, we could take a loan, right?
Just to operate,
No, I mean, like if a vehicle or
sure.
like,
Yeah, and if you take a loan, you can add that onto your levy for that year. But then when it's paid off, you have to subtract it from your levy. I mean, you can add the payments, I should say, for the years that you're paying.
yeah,
Yeah. So really, the only way to raise your levy, I mean, there are multiple ways, but the only ways that'll work for us would be net new construction, which we did get some, like $6,000 some worth we could raise it, or with a referendum, or with loans. That's really the only way to increase it.
So that's where we're at. We'd like to have more new growth, of course, and bring it up. We've had some growth. And maybe too, with the lakes coming in next year, it was mentioned that, there's 3 houses being built, and I don't know how many.
In 2024, we won't get that.
We won't get
Saratoga
that.
gets that. We
Even-
get
oh, they
it
still get it
starting
in?
2025, yes.
Oh,
Because they look at the previous year's net
mhm.
new construction.
so we wouldn't get anything until somebody built a home out in 2025.
Right, so they should all wait.
That's more good news, Diane.
You can leave now, Diane.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just the hard facts, I guess, So, I know we have the workshop coming up, but that's where things are, and I think Diane, you'll be at the
What
workshop?
workshop?
Of the meeting, the
The
committee of the
meeting.
whole. meeting,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think Betsy put it down as kind of a workshop type of budget discussion.
I just think we have to start thinking differently, like, I think we have to, like, with urgency, start addressing things like, how could we share services with public safety? How could we, like, and I'm just throwing ideas out there, like co-op some equipment that doesn't get used a lot, like,
I don't know, would that really save a lot of money, like to,
I
with
don't
the
know.
police departments and stuff? 'Cause you still
with
gotta
the
have
police
your-
department, well, in that aspect, what the having staffing, like by combining, there could be like a shared full-time officer that we were able to meet all of our hours, or we're having to look at what are we gonna do when Drew leaves? And how are we going to attract the right person that's gonna have that level of investment that we're used to at pay that is so comparatively low? So when we did that when, PAA did the study, what was that, like 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that.
So think of what's happened in 4 years. At that time, I believe there was still like waiting lists to get into places. And, you know, you had students like working part-time any place just to keep their credentials. And that's all changed. And with that, their pay has gone up significantly. So I just think we have to address it. It's gonna get to the point of, if we don't address it and get planful, we need to start talking to the community. Can we have a police department? Because if we don't start the planning now, it's not gonna
Yeah, it's
happen.
not just the police department, we're in that position with the village administrator right now.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're looking at, we're in some,
well, and that's
Difficult
another
times.
aspect where I think a shared service, a shared administrator that worked here 2.5 or 3.
difficult times.
I don't know, I don't know if I can see that working, I don't know.
It is the truth. I mean, we've talked about, with the fire department, some of the issues that we've had and police. I mean, the nice thing is, yes, we have some backup plans. We have the sheriff's department, but they can only be pressed so thin too. We have, Rapids Fire Department, because they'll come to our calls, and Nakusa will come to our calls if nobody can manage. I mean,
With the fire
honestly,
department,
our community, and even with Public Works, if we need to share equipment or something, Rapids would share it with us, or even Nakusa, but it's just, we have to work within what we have. And I understand what you're saying is a long-term plan for the village, otherwise we're gonna lose some of these services. And I think Eric had kind of talked about this, even last meeting, was we're gonna lose our identity. And I think we're all we're one pot here. We all live in the village of
Well-
Port Edwards. We live here because we wanna live here, and we enjoy the services. We enjoy the
Yeah.
police department, fire department, Public Works. And it's just it's a hard job for us to make it all work with the tight budgets that we're in. And we're not the only community that's feeling this. We're not.
Yeah, and I think that too, not that it doesn't add anything to the conversation, but I think that it is almost borderline unethical the way people above us have made the municipalities have their hands tied.
Yeah,
And I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with this community, so why are we having these conversations? I mean, I know that, and I'm no political scientist, but I know that municipalities were funded differently in the past than we have today. I think we're up against a wall that was not placed by us, but placed by people who thought, and people above us, this is how municipalities should fund themselves or not fund themselves, and I don't think it's right, but we have what we're dealt with, and
I think the one thing that we can really do, just as maybe as a whole board, is look at the growth and the potentials of growth and try to make them happen. And I think that's probably where we all talked about an administrator. We have a part-time administrator right now, and Boz, no matter what his opinions were, I think he was trying to go down that direction of growth, maybe with some different avenues. Hopefully maybe with the old mill and some other different things. And I think maybe that might have been where he was trying to work towards. And maybe we need to continue with that, because the more growth we have, the more we're gonna get back in tax dollars and things like that, and be able to provide more services for our community.
so growth is defined in building permits.
I think it's, building,
Is
like
there-
the reason we had gotten the TIF in the first place is that ERCO had a big addition and did a lot of construction. And I mean, just to be honest, if we had a big factory going on, we probably wouldn't be having these discussions. We'd have more money and they'd have more growth. And we'd have more tax dollars come in, correct, Diane?
Mhm.
So, You know, and unfortunately, we have a mill that is no longer a mill and just needs to be picked up and maybe at some point, maybe we could redevelop that land, which would be huge for our community.
And I'm gonna assume, as Eric Hummel was suggesting too, is that the undeveloped portions of Nepco Lake would be on our side if we can get them to be developed. I know,
In 2025.
well, that's true,
Yes.
yeah, I understand that. But in the long term, there seems to be potential. Now, to help me understand on this side of the river, because I feel like we're very landlocked, but, all that, land along Port Road, is that village land or is that private land?
There is a little bit that's village land, the old Port Concrete, they used to store some stockpile stuff like gravel and some of the things in a pole shed. Otherwise, it's all private. I think that would be owned by Carberg and Joe Terry and other private citizens. I would have to look at a map, but I know the only village portion is a storage that we have out there.
So outside Nepco and the mill, what potential of growth do we have in existing I mean, in what we,
Our potential of growth would be probably working with DMI, ERCO, the Lakes District. And if we can get somebody else that would want to develop some of the land that's, you know, right now, either on Port Road or on 54. And to do that, you know, I think DMI is a center who might have been some of the TIF money to get somebody to do that. I mean, we're looking at that with the coffee shop, providing TIF money so we can get growth there. So I think Dwayne said it the best is, you know, sometimes you look at that as just the administrator given those tasks to really go out and try to develop land or to, you know, get people interested into coming into the community to develop. Otherwise, the reality of it is we are a small community between two bigger communities that is very nice to live in and have good services. Unfortunately, we just don't have the growth and it's nice to live in a smaller community, but it's kind of a suburb of other two communities. And that's just the honest to God truth.
You know, backing up what you said about the sheriff's department being able to stand in the gap. But that's not, I mean, they'll respond, but they're
Right.
not going to police. And they'll try to respond, but it will never be out of my head. Last year, the reality that Halloween night, they had 2 deputies on for Wood County. We can't count on them,
Well, no,
and they have their own staffing problems.
well, of course, I mean, Adams County has 3 deputies through the whole county at a
Mhm.
given time.
Right,
And,
so
I
to
think
me,
Juneau County has 2 sometimes, so it's not just
Yeah.
us.
right,
And,
but we can't count on them, and why do people come to Port? They come for the schools, they come for the safety, they come for the low crime. I just think we need to urgently relook at how we're doing things, and I don't really agree with Eric in talking about our identity being lost, because that's like going this from 1 to 100, like if we work with another community that we're gonna become this something else, we decide how that would look. You know, whether it be, you know, a shared public safety administrator, you know, there's all kinds of variables. They could still be whatever city of whatever or village, and we could still be the village of Port. We don't have to blend our identities necessarily. So I think we have to be a little bit careful in like embracing that. That's a worst case scenario, which we don't have to choose that. We don't have to choose, because I wouldn't be okay with that. I want us to have relational services where, you know, people know our street skies and You know, they know Ben, they know who they can call for when, they know what officer is familiar with what. That's what people come here for. They don't come here to pay higher taxes for nothing. So we have to decide, how do we make this work in a way that we're still meeting the needs of what people actually come here for? Well, I mean, we can't rely on Wood County. I mean, that just,
No, I agree. I mean, but they're there. I mean, it's a safety net in some sort. But I agree, and we have to look at how we're doing business, and maybe that as a committee as a whole, somebody's gonna have to be assigned. I don't think that's up to me to make that decision.
No.
But somebody needs to be assigned to look at these alternatives of where are we gonna be? And look at a long-term plan, and if it's talking about merging services with other communities, then somebody has to, instead of just talking about it here, somebody's gonna have to do some outreach. And
Right.
talk to these communities and say, just wanna know, what do you think of this?
mhm,
If they say, no, we don't wanna do it, okay, now we know. But somebody has to do the outreach and say, are we gonna do this? And if they have any interest at all. And if they have no interest, then we'll have to look at another way of what we're gonna
Right.
do.
I mean,
So,
the options is like looking at a menu. We could maybe take a little this and that, and, I mean, we would be the writer of the plan with whatever community that we might work with. I think we just can't be so scared that we do nothing and we end up not providing the village with what they have grown to expect.
yeah, and maybe you guys can talk about that on the sixth and decide. And I'm not opposed to going to other communities. If that's what everybody wants to do, or two of us going to other communities and just put out reaches and say, this is where we're at. And, but I'd rather have that decided by the committee of the whole,
Mhm.
so. Okay, any other discussion?
I think we need to give the police department, being the only department that with that PAA didn't get addressed adequately, I think we have to address it in some capacity. I'm not suggesting at the level of Chief's dream hope list, but something that says, we know, I mean, they're literally being recruited, literally.
I know.
Anything.
Right, and I understand that, but I mean, if they do decide that they leave, then we'll have to try to, and it's tough, I mean, and Chief Drew probably knows, and I know too, it's tough to get other people to fill these positions. I mean, I mean, I work in another department part-time, and I said I'm done, and I guess I'm not done because I was reached out to stay for a while until they're gonna try to find the right candidate. It's tough. There's a lot of recruiting going on. But there are kids that are coming, adults, not kids, adults coming out of Mid-State, and they do have a full class this year. I think some of the things about working in the village, again, too, it's a small village, and you have to find the right people that wanna live here and work here. And hopefully some of the benefits of living in a small community, outreach, going to a larger community where you're getting, I think Chief Drew is probably fairly easy to work with, and other communities, they have a lieutenant or a sergeant that might be questioning their officers of what they're doing and how they're doing and what are you doing, and so I'm saying we have advantages of being in a small department, not saying that our officers, I've known this for years and years. When I worked here as an officer, we were always underpaid from what the county officers were, what other officers were. And you know what? I always look back and I said, okay, do I want to pick up and leave? I was too invested in this community. I enjoyed this community, and I said, no, I'm not gonna get paid as much as the other officers. but there were some advantages. I had a easy boss to work for. I had some, things that he let me do. He let me write grants, let me do certain programs. So it kind of balanced out. To find those people, I don't know. It's a different age, I understand.
So when you talk about, you know, having the other officers, I get that part. But with that, you also have training. You have somebody, you know, like Rapids, those kids, they can go on with Rapids and they're gonna have the training and somebody with them, always with them. So if we take right out of Mid-State, it's a real gamble. We spend a whole bunch of money in a couple of years, by the time they really get enough time under their belt with our lower call volume to be the quality officer, and then they have enough experience and they leave. But I'm not suggesting that we can't compete with the county, but what I'm suggesting is they didn't get it when other departments did. Why would they be the department that, we don't ask any of the other employees, be here because of your commitment to the village. We appreciate their commitment to the village, but when you look and compare the wages, what do you think about the wages comparatively? Have you seen any of that?
Ray did tell me that this group that Dwayne was with that did that, said that my wages were they just looked at clerk, not clerk treasurer.
Mhm.
So he did tell me that I'm doing 2 jobs and my pay is based off of 1. So it's not just the police department, but like Lon said, if you like it here, it's a small community, you know, you can make more money somewhere else
But your
But-
wages were adjusted
as a clerk.
in the last several years
As a clerk, not a
significantly.
clerk treasurer. That shows how low we were before that.
Then that would be, then I would also include that we should be looking at clerk treasurer and looking at that. Nobody should be working in our village that far below their pay grade. And if you're not being paid close to your pay grade comparable to we need to address that. We can't
And
expect
we do
any,
have good benefits and we know that and that's part of the reason.
But
people
there's-
stay, and
there's
Yeah.
when, you know, there's some people in the village that are much closer or on the money to their skill set. And then there's the police department. There's this great big span on pay. I just think that we need to, I don't,
Well, and I
any
understand.
small
where you're-
amount that is a gesture of, we're not trying to take advantage of you, because they know good, they are actively being pursued. These are officers, they're trying their darndest to serve the community and raise their families. It's not like a little bit. And albeit, they have to know, we cannot do what the county does, or the state, or anything else, but I think that we have to do something when they know, and they've seen all of these comparisons, and they know what they're being pursued for. Something, anything that says, we appreciate you, we can't afford to go here, but we want you to know, we know.
Well, I think maybe that's something that Dwayne can look at and let us know. Because, you know, again, the cost, it's such a tight budget. I just don't know where we're gonna get the money, or what are we gonna give up? I mean, we just talked about that. And I agree. I don't disagree with you, Tara, that, yeah, I think all our employees should be paid more. I agree with you 100%. Diane, everyone. But it's such a tight budget, so our employees that are here, you know, we went out and we did these employee surveys when Boz was here and this. But, you know, have we really sat down and talked to our employees individually? We used to do that. We kind of got away with that. Some employees were happy to get away with it. Away from that. I'm not so much, thinking that maybe that's a good idea, because we need to talk to our employees and say, you know, we can't just send the survey out and say, what do you think, A, B, or C,
Mhm.
and send it back. And maybe we need to say, hey, what's going on? Are we treating you right? You know, if there's something wrong, you gotta come to us. We never really see them here. I'm sure that there's things that are being said, like any job or any place. But, you know, I think maybe that's something we should probably look at is, hey, at least offer it to employees to come in and meet with us. And say, we do appreciate you. This is where we're at. If we have more money, we definitely would get it up to where we have to be. They're tough. It's a tough question. It's kind of, I do understand where you're coming from. And I guess we can talk to, Dwayne and see what he recommends. He's our administrator, so and I know he's only here a couple of days a week, but definitely something we can bring up to him. Can go off the table if everybody agrees to go off the table. Mr. Chief Drew has a question. You agree?
Do you
I'm
wanna
good.
come up here where the camera can hear you a little more?
No, and I don't have anything
Okay.
huge to say, I just wanted to say one thing. I know and our guys know that we can't compete with the county, we can't compete with the city. When Administrator Terry was here, from some of the stuff I'm finding on the T drive, what he tried to base the police wage off was the state average. And so right now we're about, well, according to the 22 numbers from the state average, we're about $5 behind that. Okay, we're about $7 behind the county and the city and whatever. We know budgets are tight. We know that. I think, you know, and what I propose for my wages, what everybody else gets, I don't think there's that big of a disparity, but I think a message to the police department that we're talking 2 guys. Okay, so for every dollar per hour, that's $2,080 per year. So any type of acknowledgement, I think, would go a long way. I know that, you know, we can't give an 18.8% wage increase. I know that. I knew that when I put it on the budget, but that's where it takes, that's where it gets us to close to the area numbers. We're not gonna get that. I don't want that, but anything. I mean, we're talking, if we can do 1% or 2%, I think that would send a strong message to the future of the department. The budget as presented, can we make it through 2024? Absolutely. You know, we can all tighten our belts, but it does make me fearful for what's gonna come in 2025 when I leave. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. With that, I mean, I will be in touch with, Dwayne when he gets back and see what we can do.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Caleb?
No, I think most of what I would have said has been said. I just think that when it comes to budgets, personnel salaries are always the biggest part of any person's budget. And I think that from an ethical place, I think that people in a lot of ways should come first. I know that it's tight because you have to make a judgment of what's important, what's not important. But I think people and their salaries should always come first. And to have a livable, I think we all have a livable wage, but asking people to donate or something. I mean, it might be a difference when, and I don't know what brought you to Port Edwards, if it was the job or if you've been here before, but you know, it makes a difference when you live here and then you get a job in the village because you already have that. But how many people's going to move to Port Edwards? I mean, people do move to Port Edwards and fall in love with it, certainly. I mean, I have. But you know, it is kind of hard because we don't live in a world anymore where we have those kind of connections. We're in a mobile community where we move a lot for our jobs. Our jobs move us a lot, and I think it's hard and increasingly harder to say, move here and live here for the rest of your life, because that's just not the practice anymore.
Well, yeah, you know,
Unfortunately.
when I got hired here, I was part-time, but to be an officer in the community at that time, you had to live, there was a clause, it was in a state. I don't know if it was a statute or it was in there that if you worked in the village, you had to live in the village, and then they ended up, doing it so many miles from
Yeah,
the municipal building and to the point that, and to be honest with you, you know, I'm a Rapids boy. And I moved here because the job and because it was required to move here. I think it's a good thing when you have people that actually live in the community. Because it gets you more invested in the community. I think that you can say that for Chief Drew and a lot of us that worked here for a long time. I know things have changed, but. You know, our last hire lives in the village. I think it was just, it's super because you have more ties to that community. And once you live here and you can see the ties and see how neighbors will help neighbors. And how people will help people, you're more invested into it. So,
I
yeah,
agree.
I wouldn't disagree with that. Yeah.
okay, I will be in touch with, Dwayne on that then. Old business, I have nothing. New business. I don't have anything at this time. Nobody's online. Correspondence received, I didn't receive anything. Oh, sorry, I did receive something. I don't have it with me. I received something from, Leo Thomas Guard, just, I think we all did,
Oh, yeah,
saying,
Oh.
the importance of, village administrator.
I would suggest,
Maybe that could,
we have that attached to the minutes as
maybe, to-
correspondence. I can forward that to Diane. Diane, did you receive it? No? I'll forward that to Diane.
okay, and basically what that said was just, his opinion on. Village administrator, that he was strongly for the village administrator position. And saying, a lot of the good things that an administrator does. And, how he was definitely for that position, and as we go on, that we should consider the administrator, and I think we've talked about that as a committee as a whole, so.
I'll pass on a word from Leo when he sent that. He only,
What date?
I can't see where it is, but it's in here. He only got a response back from Betsy. And it really occurred to me personally, but also everybody else, is that we really should be responding to
Yeah,
public's
that's a good,
correspondence, and I haven't been, I'm a millennial, we just don't respond to things if it's text. But
That's an
I realize
understatement.
that I have to move past that, and as a trustee, I should at least say received, and he had pointed out that only Betsy was the one who responded to it, and I think that we need to do a better job in
Could
acknowledging.
you,
people's- I know it's only Leo,
well.
he's watching, he will be, so, but.
Well, I guess
still.
that's why I wanted to mention it, that I didn't receive it. I did, take his comments, and maybe if one of us could reach out. Caleb, could you reach out and say that we did bring it up here at the meeting and,
and
Yeah,
we
I
will
can.
attach it to the minutes.
okay.
I just forwarded it to Diane.
Okay,
Okay, agenda items for next meeting. I guess other than the monthly bills and anything that, Dwayne has, I think he had something, he wanted me to move this meeting to 6 o'clock. But I couldn't, so I'm sure he'll have some other things that we'll be addressing at the next meeting. Get them out. Other than that, at 4:45, I would adjourn the meeting without
Okay.
objection.
thank
Any
you all.
objection?
No, no objection.
Okay. Thank you.
Now go where